Katie, and welcome back to my booktube channel. Welcome to Bookmas Day 1. This is my November wrap-up. In November, I ended up reading 19 books and a little over 7,000 pages, which is pretty good. And I only read romance this month. I'm not sure what happened. I think because in October I read a lot of like fantasy and horror and mysteries and thrillers. And I didn't read a lot of romance that month. That was like all I wanted to do in November. So these are all romance books, and about half of them were on my Kindle, half of them were physical books. So it was a pretty fun month for me, and I found some of my favorite books of the whole year this month. Speaking of one of my favorite books, the first book I read in November was It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. So this is a rom-com inspired by Schitt's Creek. It's a grumpy sunshine, it's kind of a slow burn, and it's just everything. It's so good. It takes place in this small fishing town. So our main character, Piper, is like a socialite. She's kind of like an influencer, and she keeps doing these things that pisses off her dad. And so he finally has had enough and ships her off to this small fishing town and kind of like cuts her off, essentially. And she bumps into this grumpy fisherman who tells her she doesn't belong in that town, and they obviously don't get along. And it is so cute. I could go on about this book forever. I actually have been considering rereading it, so maybe that'll be my first book of December too. But I loved this so much. I literally cuddled with it when I was done reading it because I did not want it to be over. This book has a ton of banter and chemistry. There's a ton of character development and a lot of emotions. It has a lot more depth to the characters than I was anticipating, and I fell in love with it. I gave this book 5 stars, obviously. Then I moved into some Kindle Unlimited romances, and the first one was Love Thy Neighbor by Tegan Hunter. So I don't remember too much about this book because it's one of my least favorites I read this month, but I know that they end up being roommates, and it's like a hate to love. I think there's also friends with benefits, and that's kind of all I remember. I remember really enjoying it. I thought they had some pretty good chemistry, and it was kind of like a really quick, fun read, but there wasn't any like emotional depth to it, which I find myself looking for in a lot of romances as well. So it's definitely like a quick, fun read if you're just looking for characters with some decent chemistry, but that's really it for me. So I think I gave this one 3 stars. Then I moved into the Sainthood series, at least I think that's what it's called. And the first book is Resurrection, and this series is by Siobhan Davis. So this whole series, it's essentially a dark romance, reverse harem, and I honestly kind of forget what this is about too. I was really into this series when I was reading it. I read Resurrection and then Rebellion right after it, and I also started the 3rd book, but I got distracted by some other books I wanted to read, and I never ended up going back to it, and I probably won't. But this is a pretty good reverse harem series, so if you're looking for any series like that, I would definitely recommend this. It definitely has a ton of chemistry between the characters. It also definitely gives like bully romance vibes. It's like very angsty and kind of intense, and a lot of the things that happen in this series are really messed up, so if that's not something for you, maybe don't try this one out. And then there's definitely huge cliffhangers between books. So if you don't like cliffhangers, maybe don't read them, but it's what kept me going. That's why I picked up book after book. And I gave both Resurrection and Rebellion 4.5 stars, so I'm not really sure why I don't feel any more strongly about these books than I do, but we're just gonna move into the next one. This next one is another one of my favorites of the year, and you guys have probably heard so much about it already, but I'm gonna talk about it anyway. And that book is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This book has everything. It's fake dating, there's grumpy sunshine, we also have a woman in the STEM fields, and I loved every second of this book. I'm so glad it lived up to the hype because obviously people have been talking about this book literally all over social media, and I was worried it would not live up to the hype, but it exceeded my expectations. It's so fun because you have this great balance between all of this chemistry between Olive and Adam, but then also there's still so much awkwardness between them, and it's so endearing and adorable. Adam is so protective over Olive, and Olive is just really smart and ambitious, and I really enjoyed their relationship. So definitely a 5-star read. The next book is a little spicier, and that is Desperate Measures by Katie Robert. This is the first book in the Wicked Villains series, and this is essentially a retelling of Jafar and Jasmine. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I think it definitely fulfilled its purpose if you're just looking for a book filled with smut and also with a Disney villain. This obviously fulfills that purpose, but I was looking for a little more because it's like the smallest book I've read this year. There wasn't enough character development, and I don't know, I just didn't feel like I had enough time to really care too deeply about these characters, so I couldn't really give it any more than 3 stars, but I did really enjoy my time reading it, so I feel like it's pretty good. It just depends on what your expectations are. After that, I read Duke Actually by Jenny Holiday. So as you could probably tell from the name, this is a holiday rom-com, and it involves friends to lovers, royals, and it's just really, I don't know, it really got me in the Christmas spirit. It made me want to like sit down under a blanket, light a candle, drink some hot chocolate. But it's not overly Christmassy either, so I feel like this is a good book to transition into Christmas time. An element of this book I really loved was that it added the text messages into the book in like a fun way. I always love when books have that little added element, so if you're like me and you love that, definitely give this one a chance, but add this to your Christmas TBR. I had a great time. I ended up giving it 4 stars. So reading those books brought me to November 9th, so I had to read November 9 by Colleen Hoover, and I did a reading vlog while reading this, which does have spoilers in it, but if you want to see like page by page what my thoughts are, definitely check that out. But I gave this book 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. This basically follows these 2 people that meet on November 9th, and they make this arrangement to meet up every November 9th for I think 5 years, and they don't have any contact with each other between November 9s. So you have, I can't remember how many November 9ths in here, but obviously I enjoyed it. I tabbed a lot. It definitely took me on a different journey than I was expecting, but I still had a lot to think about by the time I finished this, and I definitely would say this is like my second favorite Colleen Hoover book. Keep in mind, I've only read 3, so I don't know how much that's really saying, but I definitely enjoyed this one. Since November 9 left me with a ton to think about, I decided to reread one of my favorite books that I found recently, and that is The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. I've already talked about this. I read it in August or September, I can't remember. But because I loved it so much, I ended up purchasing a physical copy, and so I decided to annotate while reading this, and it still hit home. This is still one of my favorite slow burns. I love Mariana Zapata books so much. This is a football romance, and it follows Vanessa, who is an assistant for one of the best players in the National Football Organization, and she ends up deciding to quit because he doesn't really treat her very well as an employee, and all of a sudden he comes knocking on her door begging her to come back and work with him or to do this other arrangement. And I don't really want to spoil it, but this book is great. It has Grumpy Sunshine, Slow Burn, kind of enemies to lovers, but like maybe we'll just say Grumpy Sunshine, and also Marriage of Convenience. So I loved every second of this book. It is a very thick book, but it's worth every second. It's a very slow burn, so if you're not somebody who's really patient with romances, this might not be for you. But if you're like me and you love slow burns, definitely give this one a shot. Add it to your TBR. I am obsessed with this book. Sadly, after that, I read a couple books that I didn't really enjoy, and the first one is When Sparks Fly by Helena Hunting. And I've read a few books by Helena Hunting before, and I loved them, so I was so excited to buy my first physical copy of one of her books, but I did not enjoy this one. So this is basically a friends to lovers where our main character Avery, she gets into a car accident, and so her best friend and roommate Declan decides to take care of her. And so that sounds so cute, but I don't know, it didn't really feel like they had a lot of chemistry. I enjoyed their friendship, but they didn't really have a lot of romantic chemistry, and it felt like they really just got together because it was convenient and not because they really wanted to. Also, I feel like Avery really needed to grow a backbone because people were trying to make her feel bad for things that I didn't think were her fault, and people were kind of like walking all over her, and I felt so bad for her, and also it kept making me so angry. And Declan, I really enjoyed him as a character at first, but I ended up really kind of hating him by the end. For some reason, this book just made me so angry. I can't even speak right now, but I had to stop every few pages to complain to my fiance about it, so that's how I knew that this deserved the 2-star rating that I gave it. The other one I really didn't enjoy was The Wrong Game by Candy Steiner, and it's about this girl who has season tickets for some football games, and because she's trying to get back into the dating world, but she doesn't really want the commitment from it, she decides for each game she's going to take a different guy to the game and just go on a bunch of dates, basically. And for the first one, she's at the bar talking with her friend, and the bartender overhears her, and so she takes him to the first date. But then at the next game, he ends up showing up in the seat next to her. So that's what drew me in. It sounded great. I love football. I love sports romances. It sounded so cute. I did think that our main character and the love interest had some great chemistry. I did enjoy them together, but for some reason there was just something lacking for me. And also there wasn't really a lot of football in it either, so some of you might like that, but I was hoping for a little bit more than what we got because most of the book was supposed to take place at these football games. So it was just kind of lacking a lot for me, but the romance was still pretty good, so I did give it 3 stars. And then I read another one of my favorite books of the entire year, and that was The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. And hopefully I'm saying her name right. I realize I've never really heard people say the author's name. I've just heard people talk about the book. But I am so glad that I read this. I was a little intimidated because so many people were raving about it, and I was worried it wouldn't live up to my expectations, but it exceeded them by a lot. I'm so sad I read this on my Kindle and I don't own a physical copy yet, but hopefully for Christmas, we'll see. But this literally has all of my favorite tropes. It's a slow burn, fake dating, grumpy sunshine, there's some like workplace romance elements. It has so many popular tropes and it does each of them so well. I can't even do this book justice. I'm like obsessed with this book. It's one of my favorite romances. I loved our main characters together. They were so cute. I finally understand why people keep talking about Aaron Blackford. He is the sweetest, and he does so many really sweet things for her, and they are just so cute together. There's so much tension between them and so much buildup, and it literally gave me butterflies. I loved it so much, and they make like the perfect team. Oh my gosh, I want to reread it so bad. I'm probably gonna go reread that one too. I can't believe I found so many of my favorite romances by like in November, like for the whole year. That was not English. Sometimes I enjoy books so much they make me really flustered. What I meant to say was I can't believe this late in the year I'm still finding some of my favorite books. After that, I read another one of my least favorites this month, which was Enemies by Tijan. I am not sure how to pronounce the author's name, but I was really excited because I've seen this author's name around a lot, and this month I was trying to read a lot of football romances, so I thought this one would be the perfect one to start with. I feel like the thing I really didn't like about this book was how much drama there was. Like, this book had so much drama, I could not even keep up. Like, any bad thing you could think of that would happen to a main character, I feel like happened in this book. It reminded me a lot of like older Wattpad stories I would read, which was just very like drama-filled and angsty. And back then I loved stories like that, but for some reason right now it did not work for me. I really did not enjoy that. There's also so much fighting between our main character and the love interest, and I felt like they didn't have enough chemistry together to really balance out the fighting, so I didn't even really want them to be together. There wasn't really a lot I enjoyed about this book, honestly, but I did end up giving it 3 stars. Then I ended up reading another football romance by Mariana Zapata, which was Hands Down. So this was a best friends to lovers and I think kind of an age gap romance. I'm not sure how big of an age gap there needs to be for it to be considered an age gap romance. But anyway, I had a lot of expectations for this book because of how much I loved the other two Mariana Zapata books that I've read. And this one was a good book. I still gave it, I think, 4 stars. But it didn't hit as hard as the other ones, and I honestly didn't really root for the romance too much. They are best friends, and I loved their friendship so much. They were so cute. It was like the best friendship ever. But I didn't really see a lot of romantic chemistry between them, which was a big part of it. And I think that could be because of the nicknames he had for her. He would call her Kiddo and Pee-wee. And those are not cute. I don't think those are romantic at all. I understand they have been best friends since they were children, but I would have liked him to pick some different nicknames because even if I could have seen some chemistry between them in certain scenes, just hearing that nickname, it like snapped me out of it and I couldn't root for it. I did really like that we got some character references for some people we've met in her other books though. That was kind of my favorite element, and I did still enjoy this book. I loved their friendship. I enjoyed seeing the other characters. It was still like a fun read. I just wouldn't consider this a great romance, and it's probably my least favorite Mariana Zapata book this far. After that, I ended up reading some more sports romances, but this is hockey, and it was The Chase and The Risk by Elle Kennedy, which are the first 2 books in the Briar U series. So The Chase was essentially a roommates novel. It's kind of like teammate's younger sister romance, if that makes sense. So our main character, Summer, her brother, Dean, who we met in Off Campus, used to be teammates with the love interest in this book. I don't know if that was confusing. Hopefully it made sense. We also got to meet Fitz, I think, in the Off Campus series. So there's so many character references that we know in this book, and I loved that so much. You don't have to have read that already before Briar U, but I think you totally should because getting those references just warmed my heart. I loved being back at Briar U and seeing all these characters again. And I did enjoy Summer and Fitz, but I feel like this was my least favorite romance between all the off-campus books and this one. For some reason, I didn't love it as much as I wanted to. With that being said, I did still give this 5 stars because there's something about Elle Kennedy's writing and just being back at Briar U that just made me so happy. I just really love these books. Anytime I'm in like a bad mood, these books always make me happy and get me back into a good reading mood. So I did still give this one 5 stars, and I also gave The Risk 5 stars, and unlike The Chase, this one is actually one of my favorite Elle Kennedy books. It's between this and The Deal, which is the first book in the Off-Campus series. I love Brenna. We met Brenna in The Chase, and from that point, I knew that I was going to like her even more than I liked Summer. And there's just something so great about her. She's so badass, she's so confident, and even though you do see a lot of her insecurities because we get her perspective, but just the way she comes off, she's just so confident in herself, and I love her relationship with Jake. I just really love seeing them together. We get some fake dating in here, which is really fun, and also, Brenna is the coach's daughter. It's the coach of the Briar U team, and Jake is the star player from Harvard, and those teams are rivals. So it's kind of also a forbidden romance, which is always fun. Jake and Brenna have so much chemistry together. This book was so fun. It's so hot. There's also a lot of emotion and like genuine connection between them. And there's also a good amount of hockey in here too. It's not too much where it would be overwhelming for anybody, but I really loved the additional hockey elements in here, and it's just so good. And what I really enjoyed is that typically I like our female main character a lot more than the male main character, but in this book I loved them both so much, and I feel like that doesn't usually happen. So I just really enjoyed this one, and if you're gonna pick any of them up and you don't plan on reading the whole series, definitely try The Risk because it is so good. Then I decided to read a romance book on Kindle Unlimited that I've heard a lot of good things about, and that is Marriage for One by Ella Mays. So going into this book, the only thing I knew is that it is the marriage of convenience trope, and that's honestly the main part of the story. I really enjoyed the romance between these characters. I felt like it was really sweet, and it's like the epitome of Grumpy Sunshine because Jack is like the grumpiest character I've ever read about. I don't know why, but he literally never smiles, and it's really interesting. He's just so grumpy. But our main characters are named Jack and Rose, so they do reference the Titanic in here a few times because they realize that their names are the main characters of the Titanic. So I thought that was kind of fun, and I did enjoy their romance. I felt like there wasn't really a plot in this book, though. As much as I did enjoy them together, I really wish there were some other things that happened in the book, so I couldn't really give this book any more than 3.5 stars. Ooh, it is dual POV, so if you like getting both of the characters' perspectives, definitely give this one a chance, but again, not much else happens other than the romance, so I didn't really get as invested in the story as I wanted to. After that, I read my first Sophie Lark book, and I read Brutal Prince. I've been wanting to dive into the world of Sophie Lark for a very long time. I see a bunch of her books recommended on all social media platforms, and I figured if I were going to read them, I should read the first one. I think this is her first series that she came out with, so I wanted to kind of start from the beginning, and this is a mafia romance, which I haven't read a mafia romance in a long time. I haven't really read any other than on Wattpad. So I was really excited to dive back in, and I don't know why it's been so long because I was obsessed. I literally read this book in one day. It also has the arranged marriage trope, so if you love that, definitely check this one out. It was so good because our main characters literally hate each other at the beginning. Like, they try to kill each other at the beginning, and then you get to see them progress to where they start to really care for each other, and it's so good. I also really enjoyed learning about the different mafias. There's like an Italian mafia, an Irish mafia, a Polish mafia. There's like a whole different world, and so I really enjoyed getting to know the world building in here and trying to see how these mafias run themselves. So I definitely will be continuing this series. I can't remember how many books are in this series. There's at least like 6, I want to say. There's like 6 or 7. So I'm going to be having a great time because they are all companion novels, and I think they follow different people we've already met in this first book, at least for the next couple. So I cannot wait to continue. I finally understand why Sophie Lark is such a popular author, and I'm excited to binge this series because there's like 2 other series I'm hoping to read by her. So hopefully I just like fly through the rest of her books. And the very last book I read in November was Addicted to You by Krista and Becca Ritchie. I've been wanting to start this series for so long. Some of my favorite booktubers have talked about it, Steph and Larissa. I feel like I watch all of their videos and they really love this series. It's the Addicted to You and Calloway Sisters series, or maybe it's the Addicted and Calloway Sisters series. I don't know. I just know there's 2 different series. They're kind of intertwined, and it follows like 6 core main characters, and you really go through it with these characters. It's like all I knew going into it. So Addicted to You mainly focuses on Lily and Lo, and I fell in love with them. But what I loved the most is that they're like imperfect characters. They have so many flaws, and this book just feels so honest and realistic. It's also very heartbreaking because our one character is addicted to alcohol and the other one is addicted to sex, and they have been best friends since they were children, and they live together now. They've actually been pretending to date for a few years to kind of get their parents to back off, and their relationship is so interesting because they care so deeply about each other, but also sometimes their relationship isn't the healthiest because of their addictions. So I don't want to tell you guys too much. I feel like I've already told you too much. I went into this blind and fell in love with it, so I'm going to cut myself off there because I really think you guys should just go into this blind. But we get to meet some of the other characters that the other books are focused on as well, and I loved them just as much as I love Lily and Lo, and I have so many tabs. I tried to color code my tabs because I thought it would be really fun. For some of my other books, like I showed you guys The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, all those tabs are yellow. That's all I had at that point, but I really wanted to take my time with this book, so they're all color coded. All of the orange are like important plot points. The green is anything really important about Lo. The yellow is anything important about Lily. The blue, those are just all of my favorite quotes. And then red is anything that was really important to their relationship or any like big milestone in their relationship. So that's why it's like this beautiful rainbow, and I am so excited to continue the series. I've gone on about this book for too long. I give this book 4 stars. Moral of the story. I'm going to cut myself off there. But that is the end of my November wrap up. If you guys enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe, please click the notification bell so you know when I upload next. Thank you guys so much for watching. I can't wait to see you in my next video.